Benefit is you've got specialised people who know exactly what to do. The number of times that we get involved in situations where a third-party guy's been brought in who's half our price, it either takes him 2 to 3 times longer to resolve it, or he doesn't resolve it and we end up going anyway.
Welcome to the MTD podcast. I'm Giovanni Albanese, hosting today's show, a passionate engineer and a very proud member of the MTD team. Today I'm privileged and really excited to be back in Coventry at the headquarters of DMG MORI, a £1 billion global organisation, a world-leading supplier of machine tools, automation and technology, for our second episode on a journey together, deep diving into every aspect of the business. In today's podcast, I have the pleasure to be joined by 3 special guests. Firstly, Steve Finn, Managing Director at DMG MORI UK. Secondly, Andy White, Service Manager for DMG MORI. And last but not least, Mark Deadman, my partner in crime at MTD. Let's start with you first, Steve. Steve is an ambassador for engineering, an industry leader and the managing director of DMG MORI UK. You were employed with the group back in 1982 and progressed through the business from application engineering, technical sales, area sales, national sales, to your current position today. Steve, thanks for having me back and welcome to the MTD podcast.
You're welcome, Gio. Thank you for coming to talk to us and giving us the opportunity to talk to our customers this way on there. So you're right, yes, 39 years service for the company. But for me, the important thing is the last 9 years has been as the managing director of DMG MORI. And that was when the 2 companies came together 9 years ago. And we've had to make some significant changes for good. And some not so good. Obviously, we have to find our way in life. But the reality is that both companies had some very good attributes, and they also had some very silly attributes as well, which we have to move on from those kind of things, and we have to learn from them, and we have to give a better service all through. So part of my job, or a big part of my job, is the operations of this company, and making sure that we can deliver not just the equipment, but also the services to the customer. So today, that's really one of the items we're going to talk about.
Now, Steve, before we move on to our other guests, can you just refresh our listeners' memory and just tell them what we discussed in our first podcast, and also the purpose of these podcasts? Why are you doing these podcasts with MTD?
Yeah, the last podcast we did was about spare parts. And those spare parts are vitally important to deliver to customer, and probably even more so now we've gone into Brexit situation. We do not have a problem bringing spare parts through from our place in Garrett's Reed. I know that some companies, not just machine tool people, but some companies are experiencing problems. We've actually set our stall out early doors, made sure that we've got a very clear route through, that we've got some very professional people handling the necessary paperwork, and that's really important. So the spare part delivery is about everything. You know, before the parts gets there, the engineer has to diagnose it clearly, but without the parts, you can't fix the machine. Fact to life, you will need parts. There are, wear parts, there are parts that get damaged, broken, and, we have to look after the customer from that point of view. The objective of being on these podcasts is to give our customers an insight into our operations, because all too often we're all talking about these wonderful, shiny, smoky machines that can do all sorts of things for customers, but your service, your support, your after-sales support is actually the thing that really makes it stand out in life and really makes the difference on the performance of things. So I want to be very transparent and show customers, in this case we're listening, but to listen to customers and understand what we can offer. And there's a lot of companies out there that don't use us for various reasons on service, but it may be worth giving us a try.
Steve, thank you. And again, it's an absolute privilege for MTD to be doing these podcasts with you and to kind of educate our audience and listeners into the complete business at DMG MORI UK. Now, Andy, you've been a service engineer with DMG MORI UK since 2005. You've built up invaluable product knowledge over the years with evolving products, but also fantastic relationships across the UK with your clientele. Can you tell us a little bit about your position at DMG MORI UK and, in your opinion, why service is so important?
Good afternoon. Yeah, the big positive about service is we have contact with the customer. So more than any other part of the company, the service engineers are actually in contact with the customer. And it's very important that the customer gets everything he needs from that contact. My role as service manager, I oversee the service department. We have 4 service experts with over 60 years of machine tool experience, fixing them, sat there waiting for the call, waiting for the contact with the customer to enable us to help them free of charge over the phone. We have a couple of administrative staff who help make sure the flow of the communication with the customer is good, and that's backed up by 32 service engineers who travel the country fixing the machines.
Andy, thank you. So in this podcast, we're going to be learning everything about service and how the service from DMG MORI UK can improve your business with some of the new solutions that they offer. Now, thirdly, Mark, you're director at MTD. You look after the DMG MORI UK account, and DMG MORI UK more than any of us at MTD with the relationship that you have. What do you believe, in regards to service, and why is it so important, and why are the podcasts that we are doing so important too?
Well, I think podcasts in general is a great way of actually getting a different message out there, because a lot of people, we're working hard, but, if you're driving in the car, if you're walking the dog in the evening, podcasts are a great way of actually communicating a lot of stuff. But, I go back personally with Steve nearly 30 years, and who would have thought that he's the managing director of DMG MORI UK, and DMG MORI are together as one company, and we're sitting here doing a podcast. But one thing I would say is that since that merger of the two companies, it's only got stronger. And I think that if you're making world-class machine tools, why would you not make sure that you got the weakest link sorted, which is service?
No, really good point. So I'm going to throw that one at you, Steve. Confidence to use your service. How important is it for your clients to have the confidence to continue to use the service from DMG MORI, and what benefits will they get from that?
It's absolutely vital. The repeat business for us is good business, and that can only be really be given to us or awarded to us if we've given good after-sales service. And the important thing is, just going back onto when DMG and MORI came together, there were a lot of things that weren't right. And there's some customers out there that, I'll be very honest, I've had some torrid times, and I've gone to visit them, I've explained what we're doing, and it's taken me a long time to get to the position we're in today. But the position we're in today is thanks to the group, what's behind me, thanks to people like Andy and all the staff, the levels of training that we've done. And the important thing is that we have regular KPIs, so key performance indicators, that are monitored very, very closely, not only by myself, but also by group. And we look at all sorts of performances. You would think that the natural one is just how quickly can you get a service engineer, into my site. That's all well and good. But the important thing is, as Andy just explained, the hotliners. These hotliners are our best engineers. They're our most highly trained engineers. There's 4 of them sitting in the office, waiting to accept the call, or actually working through my DMG MORI, which perhaps we'll come on to talk to about that in a moment. And when that call comes in, a customer wants some kind of level of support, we actually achieve 52.5% fixed rate. So in other words, Gio, you as a customer call in, I've got something wrong with my machine, talk to a service expert, right, let me talk you through this, right, go and press this button, that button, do this, that and the other. Great, it's fixed. So we don't have to send an engineer out, and the customer's fixed very, very efficiently, and it's a free of charge. So when you're talking to us on the telephone, this isn't an Ant and Deck show. There's not silly telephone line charges to make, which we know some of our competitors do, and it's wrong. So we supply that as part of the service to the machine tool, no matter how old that machine is. We then look at sending an engineer out if we need to, and we'll go into some of the detail about our net service before that. But if we send an engineer out, we then look at how quickly can you fix the machine, and will you fix the machine first time? So when I mean first time, it means actually that you've got two engineers turn up on site with possibly the right part, and he repairs it first time. Not he actually, oh yes, you need one of these widgets, I'll go away and order you one, I'll come back tomorrow. That's not fixed first time. Fixed first time is genuinely fixed first time. And our hit rate on that, which I looked at the stats from October through to this February rather, is 69.8%. 69.8%, we send a highly skilled guy out. So are we expensive? I don't think so. When you're offering the free of charge service of highly qualified guys, sending good qualified guys out there with lots of knowledge, as Andy said, lots of community knowledge, which we can talk about again in a minute, and then we repair at that level. So I think that's very important that we do perform to that, and those figures are always being looked at, always looking to improve.
Steve, very impressive stats there, and these are all being monitored by your KPIs. Now, how are these, being achieved? Are they being achieved through some of the new technologies, digitalisation, remote access, Industry 4.0? Andy?
Yeah, well, we have the DMG MORI portal. This is something the customer can log a call without even calling us, without contacting us. He logs the call on the portal. That creates a ticket. The ticket comes up on our web work list. We assign that to a service expert. He then will contact the customer. I believe I think it's about 0.4 of an hour.
0.4 of an hour, yeah, you're right.
There's a response time on average that we're managing. And one of the important things the customer needs to understand about that ticket is he can also attach documentation. So you can attach up to 20 meg of information to that ticket. So pictures, videos, service files, anything you need that'll help us resolve your problem, you can attach. And I know that with emails it can be quite frustrating, can't it, when you're trying to add a video and it keeps scrolling back at you. Well, you can actually do that on the portal. The guys can see it. So once we've gone from there, the customer can keep track of that ticket online by having a look at the portal. We will keep the portal updated as to the status. If the service expert can't solve problems, and unfortunately we can't solve everything over the phone, we can then convert that into a service report, which the engineer then takes with him. All that information's on it. The service engineer goes to site and resolves the problem.
Andy, with some of these stats that you're giving me here, what about, I assume that you're talking about new machines with remote diagnostics, but what about the older machines? Do these stats that Steve's just given me, is that for the complete range of machines that are out in the field?
Complete range of machines, yeah.
Wow.
How many machines actually are in the UK and Ireland?
I think we've got something like over 9,000 machines.
Okay, because I'm going to be a bit controversial here, because I've been into a lot of your customers, and when you do talk about service, sometimes a lot of companies just look at price, and it has come back at me before. Oh well, pricing of DMG MORI service is quite high in consideration. But what are the benefits or the USPs that you actually offer?
The benefit is you've got specialised people who know exactly what to do. who can walk on site. The number of times that we get involved in situations where, for example, a third-party guy's been brought in who's half our price. It either takes him 2 to 3 times longer to resolve it, or he doesn't resolve it and we end up going anyway. So please call us first.
And when you look at the worldwide amount of machines out there, I presume as a service manager, you can actually dive into all that knowledge worldwide.
Yeah, we have one of the beautiful things about the service portal and the digitisation of the service reports is what we can do is we can search worldwide every service report. So, for example, if you have an alarm code, we can search for every service report where that alarm code is mentioned and look at what's written on that service report from any engineer worldwide. That's something I push my guys all the time. We need to get those service reports so that they're detailed, because that helps worldwide. We're not just helping the guy next door or your colleague, you're actually maybe helping somebody in China or in America resolving their problems as well.
In a digitalised world that's changing and evolving all the time, tell us about some of the new products that you have, that you alluded to, that my DMG MORI, net service. Tell us about these products, Steve, and how they have transformed your service.
Well, my DMG MORI is, as Andy just said, it's a portal that every customer who has a DMG MORI machine can register. And all they need to do is to go to mydmgmori.com and you can just register from then on in. And there will be all the history. So what you're doing is you're being transparent with the history of the machine. It will show you the account situation. We are going to be developing it further, my DMG MORI, to actually show quite a number of unique features about our company and keep a very constant communication channel open with our customers. The other one, which I think Andy could explain in better, is net service. So, Andy, I'll ask you to talk about the net service and how we use that.
Net service is something that's come into play, certainly increasingly over the last few years. It's a means of we can actually look at the customer's control, so we can actually see what's happening live. Now, the customer instigates the net service call. So we can't just go and access a customer's machine. That's not how it works. The customer, when he has a problem, he raises the point on the control. There's a button you press. That raises a remote ticket on our web work list. We can then access the machine and look at the PLC bits. We can look at the program if he wishes us to. With the customer's assistance, we can actually move the machine around. He can move the machine around. We can look at it through a service camera if he chooses the camera. So, for example, if you've got a tool change problem, you have to understand from a service expert's point of view, he's sat in the machine and you're reliant on the customer, where is it? What's happening? With the service camera, you can actually look at where it is. The service expert will be on the phone to you and can say, right, okay, can you point the camera at the spindle? What position we're at? We can look at the values on the screen. So in terms of assisting us on getting your machine back up and running, it's brilliant.
Yeah, the incredible stats actually, Andy, what Steve was saying about the calls coming in, and obviously you're actually servicing these customers without actually sending an engineer out. But we are human; things do break. How quickly can you get spare parts to make sure that spindle is back up and running as soon as possible for a customer?
Next day delivery on spindles. That's what we're, in the majority of the times, I think 95%, Steve?
That's what we're targeted at, about 95% of the time. There's always going to be the odd spindle that's maybe 20 years old that we might have to wait a little bit of time, but generally speaking, we know the importance of that, Mark, of actually getting those parts on site. So, we say next morning delivery up to around about 4 o'clock, is it, in the afternoon?
Yeah, we can't get the spindles before 9 a.m. We've tried, but unfortunately, because of the weight of some of these spindles, we're looking at next day delivery.
And general other spares, are they...
next day delivery.
Right. Okay, because that's really important. It could be something very minor, couldn't it? And obviously, needs changing. But, also, the size of your service guys actually on the road, how many do you have?
We have 32 engineers in the UK, and I think there's something like 6,000 worldwide. So it's a pretty good knowledgeable team.
Andy, I've got a few questions for you. You know, your machine tools are evolving all the time. You know, they are evolving. Prior to the podcast, you mentioned, you know, that there's only so far that the machine tool can evolve mechanically, but it's all about the software now. And you are innovation leaders at DMG MORI UK. How do you keep your service engineers up to date with all the latest technology? And tell our audience about, you know, the software updates within the machine tools as well.
Okay, so there's a constantly evolving scene out there with machine tools, or with any industry actually. So we have each of the factories run their own training programs, which is where our engineers actually go to the factories and get taught what needs to be taught on certain products. Obviously, the COVID situation that we've had over the last year, that's not been possible. But what the factories have done is shifted most of those courses online. So we've continued a continual training program with our engineers. We've spent weeks sat online learning. Now, regarding the process of what we call maintenance notices. So whenever a customer has a new machine and he has a problem, and they do happen occasionally, we have a process within the organisation that we log every single problem that is a warranty case. Those warranty cases are reviewed, and should there be any issues that we see are repeating, we raise what we call a maintenance notice. This is something that's free of charge to a customer up to 5 years. If it's relevant, we can make those changes. That could be a software update. It's a case of continual improvement with the machine tool. So as soon as we see a repeatable problem, factories offer a maintenance notice. We then enact that maintenance notice free of charge.
And it's staggering, isn't it? I believe you've got, is it 156 different models available in the portfolio? I mean, to have that knowledge and to be able to educate your guys as much as all the other service guys around the world. I don't know what other machine tool company gets close to that, if I'm honest. It's quite incredible.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Sure.
And Andy, going back to that question, just quickly, you know, educating people on the latest technology is one thing, but you're also servicing machine tools that are over 15 years old, probably. So how do you keep people educated on the older ones as well as the newer ones? There's a large range of products and machine tools to be trained on.
It is. I think DMG MORI, though, are a very good employer, I have to say, and obviously I've got to say that when the boss sat there. But no, it's very good, and we have a lot of long-standing service engineers with vast experience. You know, we've got guys who've been with the company 30, 40 years, so we do have that experience. And it's easy with the new gear because you can have the training from the factories, so you have the up-to-date modern training, either via put in person in the factory or on the network. But the old stuff, you're right, it is quite challenging because it has changed that much, but we do have the experience.
And in your kind of introduction, Andy, we kind of touched upon, you know, your relationships with your clients. You go out into the field, your experience and meeting people. Again, how important is this side of the business?
It's vital, absolutely vital. You can have the best, shiniest, wonderful machine, but it's no good if it's not working. And that's where the service team comes in.
Now, Steve, you know, listening to all of this, why wouldn't people use DMG MORI UK for service?
Well, I have to be realistic about these situations, but the reality is the last 9 years, you know, I've worked extremely hard. The staff have been fantastic and worked with me. Group have given me support, and I know how important it is to have that service. I say it many times to customers. Do we get it right every time? No, we don't. But we make sure that we understand what we've done wrong. We look at lessons learnt. We run our Kpis to make sure that we continually improve it. So I don't think that anybody in the world could sit back and say, well, why shouldn't I have my kit on the board? Why shouldn't it be my opportunity to sell? I think you have to earn that, and you have to keep it going all the time.
So would you say, Steve, that, the same as your machine tools, they've been improving over the years, would you say that your service is continually improving too?
Our service is in the last 9 years has improved dramatically, absolutely dramatically. And we've got, stats to show that and to understand what we've done and how we've done. We've moved people around to get the best situation. You want round pegs in round holes and that kind of thing. And also people's performances are different in various areas. So you look at giving them the opportunity to excel in those areas. Yes, it's got to continually improve and evolve. You can't sit there and say that's it. One thing is for sure, we're not starting with a blank piece of paper. We're not developing a process. We have a process in place and it's working, and we just need to completely fine-tune it all the time.
It's interesting, Steve. We've gone over the your business aspect many years, haven't we? The growth, the growth in the team as well. How important is service to you personally as managing director compared with selling new machines?
Well, there's 3 or 4 businesses within our business. Spares is one, sales is one, service is one, applications and accounts, of course, which is actually probably not seen by the customers the majority of times. And they all hold equal kind of strengths within the company. They are all there to support each other and help each other. And there are times when the sales guy cannot get an order because he needs a service guy, so the service guy steps in. We're not talking about fixing a machine, we're talking about a big inquiry that we've got at the moment, which is a complex installation. And we need the engineers to be doing technical work up front to support the sales guys. And vice versa, the sales guys will put a machine in, which will give the service guys work. So it kind of goes round and round and round. But we make no bones about it that spares and service is a financial revenue for us. It has to be in these days. Machine tool margins are very, very tight indeed. I guess there'll be a lot of people bringing their small violins out on this one. But the reality is we're selling at factory prices. We're not selling at dealership prices, which are generally fairly extorted in the price. In the upwards direction, not downwards, I can assure you. So, we will make money from service and spares, but we've got a big team there to support, and we've got to make sure that if a customer's running a machine, you take the F1 boys, they need that machine to perform because they need the part on the grid at 2 o'clock on the Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon.
They've always been demanding on F1, haven't they? To be fair, but obviously you work very closely with Red Bull. Now, in our live events that we've produced with you, you've mentioned how much the finance has impacted new business here at DMG MORI UK, if not worldwide. Out of interest, how many customers are actually having a service package off the back of that new machine effectively?
Well, it's actually a podcast that I want to do later on down the line, so I don't have the stats in front of me at the moment. But there's a guy called John Adams that looks after life cycle products, and that will be a podcast on its own. But it's actually increasing significantly because you've got situations where companies in aerospace, they have to have some kind of registration for the maintenance of the machines. And we definitely see better performance of machines if they are looked after. I mean, it's kind of fact of life. Some customers have spot service, some customers have long-term service agreements, some customers do their own. It's quite a mixed bag actually, but it's a service that we'll talk about later on in the year about another podcast.
So Andy, we've touched upon a few sectors, the F1 industry, the aerospace industry, but you deal with all sectors, and in this day and age after COVID and Brexit, in the UK we want to become masters of our own destiny now and start reshoring work. What kind of different problems, if you like, do you get in different sectors, and how do you resolve them?
There's a huge variety of sectors out there, all of which have unique problems. Certainly, for example, You can't say to certain Formula One teams, oh, by the way, an engineer will be there next week. He wants somebody within the hour, somebody same day, somebody as soon as possible. He also wants a machine that's highly accurate, produces a unique part first time. So his demands over a production automotive shop are completely different. But the response we try to give is the same.
So, Andy, what you're actually saying is that obviously every specific job can be quite unique with the problem. So, therefore, do your service guys, do they have the knowledge across the portfolio, or do you send some guys in for like an automotive job or an aerospace job, for instance?
The job starts at the service experts. So the service experts are key to this, and this is why we've put the most experience in that office. They need to know what the job is, what type the job is. Is it a mechanical job? Obviously, not everybody knows everything. So we have certain experts in certain fields. So we need to determine which side of that field is your problem at. Is it mechanical? Is it electrical? Is it systems? Is it software? And we will send the correct engineer to you, and that's key for us. Because we don't want to waste your time, Mr. Customer, sending somebody who doesn't know what he's doing. We need to send the right guy for the right job.
So you've got skill sets in all areas, Andy?
All areas. And if you think about the advancements in machine tools over the last 10, 15 years, back when I started in machine tools, back with Steve at Hitachi, back in the day, you're an electrician or you're mechanical, pretty much. Now you're talking about system software, you're talking about PC software, interconnectivity of machine tools, networks. So we've got guys who are experts in networks. So you can imagine the range of knowledge one guy would need to have to look at everything. It's not possible.
So you've got specialists in each arena, yes. Really, Andy. Yeah. Now, going back to kind of the sectors and these specialists in all these different arenas, Steve, you've got, I know this podcast isn't about products, but you have products that lend themselves to automotive. You have products that lend themselves maybe to medical more. And you've also got into automation, but automation for high volume and automation for low volume work too. So again, back to you, Steve. How do you accommodate for all this? How easy is it to do so?
Well, at the end of the day, it's a product. And whether that product goes into an aerospace company or a medical company or a hydraulics company, the application of the machine may differ, but the actual maintenance of the machine is the same. So what we can also do is we can transfer knowledge across. So we can transfer knowledge across from one area to another industry and help the industries within themselves as well. So, for example, it's pretty unlikely we would sell an NTX multitasking machine to an automotive supplier of high volume. So we have other products which may be a twin spindle, twin turret type application. But, the drives, the controls, as Andy says, the PCs, the interconnectivity, these all remain fairly common platforms. So again, we train guys up in various areas, and we put a lot of time into training. As Andy said earlier, in the last year with COVID, we've done this all online, but we have something like 15% of the guys' time spent on training. That's high numbers.
That's fantastic. That's great to hear that.
Yeah, just to interrupt, Steve, when you look at the growth that you're looking at, I mean, I know that you guys have high targets. Okay, to sell machines. Is the financial backing there to support that with further sales engineers to cover new machines and sales? Absolutely.
I think the comment that good old friend of ours, Andy from Machinery, who's now retired, he came here on the opening of DMG MORI, and he looked at me and he said, it's not about this, because we've got a lovely building here. We've got 100 people that really great people, really long-serving, good knowledge. He said, it's not about this, is it? And I went, no, it's about what's behind you. And it's the group, DMG MORI, the 12,000 people that are there, the content into the factory, the direct work into the factory from the service perspective. We will get service engineers who would be called upon when we're designing new equipment. What's good, bad and indifferent? Where should this go? Where should that go? So this kind of activity is really, really important. Financially, we are strong as a company. There is no issue at all with us as a company going forward. So there's certain things that we'll be launching in the future that will show and demonstrate that financial strength, which means we're here for decades. And when you hear Dr. Mori addressing the apprentices at, not the last emo before, all the apprentices came for a day to the emo show. He said, you guys have got a fantastic opportunity because you can work in a company that's got all sorts of disciplines, whether it be accounts, marketing, sales, engineering, design, logistics, anything, you know. But what's really important for me, and this is what Dr. Mori was saying, what's really important for me is that I want your children's children working here. That's 3 generations. And that gives you an idea of the confidence of where we will be in many, many, many years to come. And give the customer confidence that we will continue to look after them and support them.
I think that's important when you're buying a product. I know that you've been a massive fan of one automotive product, and you've driven one for many, many years. And I presume it's based to a certain extent not of just the product, but also the service.
Yeah, and I don't buy it because it's the cheapest car available. I buy it because I get looked after very well with the service. Performance and reliability of the vehicle is very good.
I think that's a beautiful statement, Steve, and it's nice to hear that the longevity of the business is going to be here for many years to come. I've got one final question before we wrap up for Andy, but it's been a really fantastic podcast. But for me, you mentioned, and we've got into products slightly off the back of service, which is inevitable, but for me, is your product portfolio is not just evolving and increasing in the actual machine tools that you offer. You're actually now offering automated solutions. You know, prior, not long back, you were using third-party solutions, but now you're offering your own automated solutions. And I'm assuming that this, again, is a game changer in regards to service because you've got full control over the automation rather than it being a third-party product.
Definitely, we have interactivity between machines and the automation system. You can have the automation system running the machine or the machine running the automation system. You can go a huge variety of automation. And I think the biggest advantage we have over most of our competitors is I can pick the phone up and I can talk to the guy that actually designed that automation. I can discuss what's happening with it and he can offer me a solution. And that goes across the range. I can actually talk to the guy who put the spindle into a particular machine to find out why we've got a problem now with it.
I think it really just sums up really everything that this podcast is about. You know, a big OEM company like yourselves, that you make, design, manufacture your own products, and who better to service your own products than you?
Well, it is, but I also think that people do have perceptions about big OEMs, about not bothering with the little guy. Well, I can assure you from my perspective that is not the case. Certainly with service, and I know Steve will back me on this with sales, we look after everybody.
Absolutely.
Everybody is part of the family, if you like. When you buy a machine tool, you're part of our family.
Absolutely brilliant. Steve?
Andy's 100% correct. The responsibility of the UK rests with me. I have to make sure that everything goes according to plan. That the customers are given the utmost support and service. And the interesting thing is that everyone knows everyone in this industry. It's a very small industry. And if we've got Fred in the shed, as I affectionately term, we'll probably know half a dozen big CEOs of big companies. And, bad news travels really quickly. Good news takes a long time to get around, and I'm appreciative of this opportunity because this is the opportunity to listen to what we have and then come and experience us.
Steve, you've got 9,000 machines out in the field. With respect, probably not every machine is under your service contracts, but what would be your message to them?
Well, you're correct. People use perhaps different service levels. Perhaps they use a local guy, perhaps they've got their own team. Perhaps they just don't want to deal with us. But I would say give us the opportunity. Andy's a really hands-on guy. He knows what's going on a day-to-day basis. We've got a good, strong team behind Andy to make sure that level of support carries through to the field. And, we want to do an honest day's work with a customer and make sure that we get a good, satisfactory response at a reasonable price. Because actually, as I said, I buy that particular car not because it's the cheapest, but because I know it'll get me from A to B. And that one was changed. It's comment, obviously, because that was changed yesterday. But 3 years, absolutely perfect performance. You need it. Customer needs it.
Perfect. Guys, it's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure, for us to be here and for us to learn about, the inside runnings of your business and how it all works. Mark, any last words?
Well, I think that was my last question, so I'll be quiet now.
No, brilliant. Thanks, Mark. And Andy?
No, just like I say, please join the family.
No, Andy, it's been a pleasure to meet you for the first time and get to know about your role. And Steve, any final words?
I just hope that the people who listen to it get some value from this, and thanks for listening and giving us the opportunity.
No, thank you, Steve. I think it's definitely broken down some barriers to entry, and I hope that for all the listeners out there, they've enjoyed the latest podcast. Please let us know what you think, and don't hesitate to contact DMG MORI direct to find out more. As mentioned, we'll be producing a series of podcasts in partnership with DMG MORI, learning all about their business. So make sure to download the podcast app from your smartphones so you don't miss a future episode. Until next week, the MTD podcast, educating and shedding light on our great engineering industry.
Thanks for listening to the MTD podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.